Welcome to Tree Impressions, the podcast that gives you, the listeners, our impressions of trees. I'm your host, or one of your hosts, Rusty Marchello, certified arborist and track certified through the ISA. Along with me is my other host, Rusty Marchello.
Thank you, Dusty, and happy to be here. Tree Impressions was inspired by what we do on a day-to-day basis and how trees impress upon us in our environment and how we impress upon them.
Yeah.
Dusty, I do have to have you tell us just a little bit more about your background with trees, because we will be playing this game later on called Everyone's Got Choices. And you're going to have to answer some questions. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Well, I've been doing tree work I've been doing tree work since I was 19. Started in Las Vegas, Nevada. I know there's not a lot of trees there, but there are a lot of palm trees, cottonwoods, elms, palo verdes, mesquites. So there was trees to prune. Nothing like we have here in the Pacific Northwest by any stretch of the imagination. However, I did have an awesome opportunity to work a number of years at the Bellagio during its opening. So I was a gardener there for 2 years.
Beautiful casino.
Oh, I mean,
forget about it.
Still the same.
Forget about
it. It's held up. Steve Wynn was an amazing. I mean, that dude, Steve Wynn, he would walk around the casino at night, blind as a bat. But he would tell people like to move things, something wasn't straightened up right. Yeah, that dude was...
Do you remember those commercials where they had him standing on the ledge of one of his casinos with his arms stretched out?
Oh, yeah.
And everybody laughed about that because they were like, the only way you got the guy to do it is because he's blind.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, yeah, offset. Well, obviously, if you haven't noticed, my name's Dustin and his name's Rustin, and yes, we are twins. And we grew up in Las Vegas, Nevada together. So from there, I worked pretty extensively with Davey Tree. Went to Kent, Ohio for a blink, San Francisco, and then moved out here to the Pacific Northwest to...
Hurricane Katrina?
Well, that's when I moved out to Pacific Northwest. They sent me to Hurricane Katrina, getting trees off of houses. Saving babies. And then from there, I've just been doing residential tree trimming.
Right on. Yep.
I've seen a lot, and I've got probably, I just think a little differently than a few arborists. I don't buy into absolutely everything because I've just seen too much.
You're crazy. You're a weird dude. No, I think you're smart. You've been around it enough, and it's hilarious to find out kind of what you're going to say on about some of these questions. I did pull them out of some research I've been doing in order to become an arborist, called, the title of the book is 100 Tree Myths by Alex L. Shigo. So here we go, Justin.
Hold on, and if you're not familiar with Alex L. Shigo, he is considered the father of modern arboriculture.
S-H-I-Go.
I happen to have a signed copy of one of his books.
I just geek
out a little bit. The guy, I think maybe this is where I get it from, is Shigo just had some very, very, just
insightful.
Yeah, profound thoughts, especially on his pruning.
Yeah, very zen.
And so he came out with this book, 100 Tree Myths, and it's obviously definitely a book in every arborist's closet, hopefully.
Made Times top 100 informational publications of the century.
Really?
I don't know.
No.
I'm kidding.
I'd believe it.
So.
Anyways, maybe even some of these myths might be a little dated, but anyways, it's a good start.
Here we go.
Okay.
So, this is titled, Everybody's Got Choices. So, anybody can plant a tree?
Yep.
Lots of mulch is good.
Yep.
Trees heal wounds.
Nope.
There's an set angle for correct pruning cuts.
Yep.
Wound dressing stop rot.
Nope.
Decay is a disease.
Yep.
part wood contains living cells?
Nope.
Possible to select a species of trees resistant to the spread of disease?
Yep.
And speed up decay?
Nope.
Good job. Good job.
Whew.
Good.
Boy, I went through that pretty quick.
Yeah, you did. So
Cool.
we're going to...
Hopefully I can
I
justify my answer.
Yep, it was real easy checklist for me. Yep or nope. So let's go to your first one. And you said yep, and I disagree. But you can go ahead and
So what was it? What was the question?
Anybody can plant a tree?
You bet. Anybody can plant a tree.
You're right. Anybody who has a shovel.
I've seen it.
And a couple dollars.
And I'm in the business of typically correcting trees planted in the wrong place.
Why is planting a tree in the wrong place? Might sound kind of elemental, but why is planting a tree in the wrong place such a bad thing?
Well, I'll make the analogy about when people go to get a dog, typically, right? There's some investigate. What kind of dog? Does it shed? Does it bite? Is it good around kids? Hey, these are all excellent questions.
Anybody can buy a dog?
Yeah, and anybody can buy a dog, and that's why I said anybody can plant a tree.
Yeah.
So these are excellent questions, and I think about it to even to ask about a potential tree. Like, is it going to have a thorn? I've got kids.
Oh.
Some people too.
I love blueberries.
Yeah. Well, so do insects. So when people have fruit trees, I always ask them, like, you got kids? They're like, yep. It's like, okay, well, you're going to have wasps.
Yeah, pollinators.
Yeah, and you're going to have some bees, okay? But it's the wasps that are the pain in the...
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're not fun.
Nests.
So, but it's management,
Ooh.
Anyway, so what...
Ugh.
I digress. What do we do next?
That's a topic all on its own, planting a tree. Lots of mulch is good. You said yep.
I said yep. And I know where the book is going with it.
Now, I'm going to back up for just 1 second because I said the word good is so subjective. What you think is good, somebody else might think is good, and I'm an English teacher by trade.
Mm-hmm.
What does that look like? What is good mulch? What is potentially bad mulch? If both are good, is there a difference?
I think the book is going more towards too much mulch. And in that case, when you don't, in order for decomposition to happen, you've got to have microorganisms, and you have to have nitrogen as well.
Okay.
And so that mulch and that stuff is going to pull that nitrogen out of the soil in order for it to break down. And unfortunately, because there isn't like thousands and millions of years of decomposition happening, too much mulch can be a bad thing in that aspect. But a lot of mulch, you'll start to see layers forming.
Right. And
that's what we want to see. We want to start seeing layers form. You can peel back probably that top layer. You'll start to see that white mycelium.
Should it feel like something? Should it smell like something?
Should smell sweet. Too much mulch. An indication of having too much mulch.
Like cinnamon smell.
Sucker branches coming up, and because you're going to have mulch sitting around the base of that tree, it's going to stay wet, and you're going to really have a bad interaction on that root flare. That junction of trunk and root. That's the root flare.
Right.
Well, we get soil built up or too much mulch built up. They'll start to rot right in there. That bark, if you will, needs to be exposed.
Right. Cool. The next one is trees heal wounds. Like, so if I were to take a knife out and stab this tree in the kidney,
right.
Okay, or cut off one of its limbs, with the chainsaw or something.
So here's the difference.
What? Okay.
Okay. So a tree can be wounded. However, that wound will never heal. If I stabbed you,
no, don't,
in the kidneys, like you said,
like you've tried,
like I've tried. If I stabbed you in the kidneys, at some point, if you recover and you don't die from your wound, I know you will. You're too much like me. So that kidney will eventually become fully functional.
Right.
Now, you cut a limb off or a lawnmower hits a tree, strikes it, that wound is always going to be there, and that tree is going to actually kind of like, it's going to what they call wound over, but it's kind of like grow over.
Compartmentalize.
And what the tree's also going to do is compartmentalize that wound off. Those cells around that area are going to harden off. I think there's a chemical change in there to prevent decay from moving forward, and then the tree begins to use its resources to seal that wound off, grow over the top of it so that decay can't, or insects or anything can't enter into that.
Right.
Too many of those wounds, either vehicle damage or pruning cuts or any kind of wounding, too many of them is going to put a real draw on the tree's resources.
Right.
And its ability. So you hit the trunk of a tree, okay, it's probably not as bad as some people might think. We start taking out too many branches, and branches that have leaves or needles on them that photosynthesize and create that stuff. You start removing too many of those,
then it can't stress.
Yeah. And there was an interesting, Shigo has had an interesting point where limbs that are really long, right? Well, you got to kind of take good care of those, because it has to that foliage on the end has to support the limb itself.
Right.
On top of what it needs to do for the rest of the tree.
Right.
So
you can't just cut it.
No, I mean the tree needs it, or it might not. But you got to make some of those decisions.
So we're talking about cuts then, and you have to, because humans have to live around trees.
True.
Okay, and there's no getting around that.
Dead branches.
And not only dead branches, but even live branches that have to be done away with because of where they're at, so on and so forth. Is there a set angle for a correct pruning cut, or can you just cut the limb anywhere? If you're looking at a branch coming out and it's reaching into your bedroom, okay, I could cut it, or you could cut it.
Yeah.
If you cut it, where would you cut it?
Okay, so there's definitely so 3 things there. In indiscriminate cutting and the repercussions of that. Well, I guess maybe just 2, and then cutting it back at the tree. So the placement of that cut it's strategic more than anything, because there's a branch bark ridge, and right there at that branch bark ridge, and if you look at and there's a collar, so when you look at a branch that protrudes from a tree, it'll have this like kind of swell, and then kind of like wrinkles, and then you'll get the more cylinder branch that comes out of that. So you want to cut just above that collar. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of just starting at that collar and cutting straight down. Okay?
Right.
What ends up happening is the branch is too heavy and it rips down and damages that collar. Okay?
I've done that too.
So there is a way to cut that properly. You do an undercut and then a top cut, and then they do the finish cut, which is going to be right at that branch collar. Now, what I said earlier about strategy is it's not leaving a stub,
right,
and not cutting flush to the trunk of the tree, so that it's the smallest yet least invasive or least issue there, to be able to grow over quickly, for the tree to be able to use less resources to grow over that wound. So proper pruning cuts are huge,
right,
because if you're a good arborist and you're making surgical cuts, then you want to make all those cuts as efficient as possible.
And with sharp
tools. And if necessary, clean ones. Because verticillium wilt, many diseases can get past dirty hand saws or from one part of the tree to the next.
True.
I definitely have been asked by homeowners whether or not I clean my tools.
Now, this is something Grandma did. Okay?
I know what you're going to say.
And you know what? It bothers me
paint the trunk
that
of the
you
tree.
said no.
Yeah.
Because she would paint trunks, and she would paint limbs that she would shoot in wound dressing, stop rot. You said no. So, Grandma says yep.
Okay. All right. Well, I named this company after her, Tillis.
I understand.
So I love her to death. However, the painting on the trunk of the trees, she had mulberries. That was a I believe it's a wives' tale. It might have had something to do with it, but it was to paint the trunks of the trees to avoid insects crawling up them, getting in them, whatever. And they spent time and money and did that to trees.
Yeah.
It's crazy. You would drive down Las Vegas,
We
anywhere.
did a few times.
Yeah.
We had lots of buckets of white paint.
Yeah, buckets of white paint. Why are you doing this?
Make
I don't
it
even know.
straight.
Anyways, and then and then painting wounding cuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Well, like earlier, compartmentalization, coated. The compartmentalization of decay in trees. Tree has a natural defense mechanism to prevent decay from moving in. Now, that system only works for so long and under certain conditions, and when those conditions start to change, then we can see decay move in quicker. So if you make a really big cut, it's going to take a really long time and a lot of resources for that tree to wound over the top of it. And by that time, typically, now we have a cavity.
Mm-hmm.
And now when we have cavities, we need to have them inspected.
Yeah. Well, and so I think I had to wrap my brain around decay. Next question was, is decay is a disease? Yep. And I think at first I thought decay wasn't. I just thought, but I didn't think of a tree as so much more of a live presence that if you can't stop decay and it continues to grow, then it's a disease. It will kill the tree eventually. Eventually, that's what happens to a tree once it finally outlives its lifespan. It just comes overwhelmed with decay enough it just fails.
Right, and it's typically because there's a pathogen that's aiding
And
that.
there's a speed up process to that.
Tree is low in vigor, cannot produce more wound wood. And then that's when we start to look at trees turning into hazards.
Yeah.
And what we need to do from there and evaluating them and.
I think it was funny. We were looking at some pictures at the centers of trees that were hollow.
Yeah.
Yet still like fully functional.
Oh, totally.
And then so the next question was heartwood, the center of the trees, contains living cells.
No.
They eventually have become.
Yeah, as the tree grows, the meristem, you've got the cambium and the xylem, and they begin to start taking on different functions in the tree as the tree starts to grow outward. And then as that tree starts to grow outward, those cells slowly start to become non-functional and become what we call the heartwood, kind of like your bone.
Okay.
For the most part. However, you can still have up to 30% decay and that tree still be safe.
Right.
I often explain to clients, if you were to take a glass and turn it upside, if you took a glass and put it upside down, you could stand on it, although the glass is hollow. Now, you could take, some sort of tool and cut a portion of the edge of that glass out, and you could still supply a lot of weight to it, right? But as that glass starts to disappear from the rim there, then that's when we start to have problems.
Don't be standing on it. That's.
Yeah.
I was just kind of giggling a little bit about this next question because I remember painting those trees, and those big fat red ants, they would be painted white, and they'd still be crawling all over those trees. And I guess we might have answered it already, but do ants speed up the decay process? They have to if we're trying to paint them.
No. I would say that ants merely just clean out the decay. They're not eating the tree.
Right.
It's a home. They're nesting there.
Right.
So if anything, they're going to expose issues in the tree. And, obviously, I think it's a great idea for anybody to have an arborist come out and take a look and see an evaluation.
Right.
You know?
Well, that will bring me to
maybe actually meeting us.
We will be at Training Day. It's a training facility. They're having an open house to invite clients to learn more about what they do with the health of training, and then we've been invited to be there to present a little bit and show other people what we believe trees can do for your health and for your environment. And that meetup, open house, is Saturday, January 27th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Training Day. And the address is 4225 Southeast 82nd Avenue. It's across the street from a Walmart, and it's a pretty easy location to get to, and there's plenty of parking nearby. So come out, say hi, meet us, and we'll be happy to say more to you. Dust?
There's going to be a pull-up competition there.
Oh my God.
So come ready. Other than that, come visit us on the web.
Yes, we are.
TillisTree.com.
Beautiful. Couldn't have said it better myself.
I think you tried.
I did. All right. Good night.
Good night.